Hey everyone, Mr. Sujano here, your source for gaming, tech, emulation, and open source news. Let's get started. Alright, we'll kick things off talking about Nintendo Switch emulation with Yuzu Fork Tsuyu. And it appears that Tsuyu is on life support. So it all started with this post over on the Tsuyu subreddit titled "Tsuyu is now gone, read below." In that post there's a link to a paste bin and it's from KKSOWO, and you can call them KK. They say they've been a developer on the Tsuyu team since day one. Now I'm just going to pull out a few things here and I'll drop a link to the full paste bin in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. But they say, as of today, the project, at least within the current developer team, is no longer a thing. They elaborate on this and say, "We are officially leaving Tsuyu due to its radioactivity. For example, the Switch SDK has been used illegally within the previous Yuzu developer team, which effectively makes the whole code radioactive. The only way we can fix that is if Nintendo specifically tells us what they have a problem with. But obviously that won't happen." Now for reference here, SDK stands for Subscribe to Mr. Sujano, or Software Developer Kit, depending on how you want to interpret that. And if this is actually true, it may be a reason Nintendo went after Yuzu. I mean, I don't think they'd be happy that Yuzu was using an SDK to help code Yuzu. I don't know though, I don't know if this is true. They then say because of the source's radioactivity, most of the developer team wants nothing to do with the project because of liability concerns. Good riddance, Mr. Sujano. I don't know why that's there. Whatever. Anyways, second, what's going to happen with the developer team? They say, in a nutshell, we have decided to group together into a new community where we'll work on different projects. They might be related to emulation, they might not. This will not be a continuation of Tsuyu or Yuzu Fork in any shape or form. Ways to participate in it will be announced later on. Now shortly after that one, there was another post on the Tsuyu Reddit, and it's titled "The Death of Tsuyu." And this one is by AMA25, who claims to be another Tsuyu developer, and confirms that the project is basically dead. Now to make matters confusing, a little while after that there was another post on the Tsuyu Reddit, and it's titled "Founder Speaking Future," and it's by the Crimson Hawk, who was running the project. And they say, "Dear everyone who is reading this, I understand that a portion of our developers are leaving this project, be it my fault or not. However, this does not speak the death of this project. I, along with many other passionate people, will still try our best to continue to maintain this project. However, we do need more C++ devs for fairly obvious reasons." So I guess to sum this up, it appears the main developer team has left the project. The person who founded Tsuyu is still there. They still want the project to continue, but it appears they've only got a skeleton crew, which means that Tsuyu is either dead or at least on life support. And for some reason, my name has been thrown into this. To be honest with you, I don't know how Tsuyu is going to dig itself out of this one, and there were even rumors that one of the Tsuyu devs had an SDK themselves. And if you want to learn more about SDK and what that means in terms of coding for an emulator, I'll drop a link to Video Game Esoterica's video in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. Next up, we're still talking about Switch emulation and still talking about a Yuzu fork. And we're talking about Sudachi, which just got a brand new release. So at the time of filming, the latest version here is the easy to remember VEDD7896. And they say Super Bomberman R2 is now playable. So as far as I know, even though Sudachi's Discord was removed the other day, the emulator still appears to be active. This one is 100% free, it's open source, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below in the event that you wanted to learn more about it. Next up, we're still talking about Switch emulation, and this time about the juggernaut of Switch emulators, Ryujinx. And Ryujinx just got a series of updates. Interestingly, a number of these changes had to do with Penny's Big Breakaway, and they improved performance on this game by up to 1500%. That's a lot. For those who may not be aware, Penny's Big Breakaway is a 3D platformer that seems to have been reviewed pretty well. Next up, we're surprisingly talking about the Wii Cube 64, and I thought the story on this one had ended. For reference, if this is your first time seeing this glorious piece of machinery, basically someone was selling it for $100 on Facebook Marketplace. It plays Wii games, GameCube games, and N64 games. And I contacted the owner of this one because they were selling it for $100 or asking for a Powkiddy. And instead of trying to purchase this thing, I just flat out gave them a Powkiddy because this thing brought me a lot of joy. So just today, a company by the name of K-Tech, which is based in the UK, reached out to me about the micro SD card used in the Powkiddy. So here's a portion of the email they sent to me. Your gift of the Powkiddy RGB20S to the creator is very generous. However, the SD cards supplied with the Powkiddy are unfortunately of very poor quality with a high failure rate. At K-Tech, we take pride in supplying our customers with top-notch products, which is why we use name-brand SD cards and customize the firmware configuration to enhance the experience. Inspired by your generosity towards the creator of the WiiCube 64, I would like to offer our support by sending our SD cards for the Powkiddy RGB20S, also for free. These cards come preloaded with our expertly crafted configurations, ensuring optimal gameplay and user experience. Although we don't currently sell our devices outside of the UK, I'd still like to extend this offer as a one-time gesture. Now, I don't know a whole lot about K-Tech, but this is a super nice gesture and it came out of the blue. I'll drop a link to K-Tech's website in the description below, and I do recommend checking them out. So let me know your thoughts about this DLC portion of the WiiCube 64 story in the comments below. Moving on, and we're talking about Nintendo 3DS emulation with CitraFork Lime 3DS, and Lime 3DS just got a brand new update. So at the time of filming, Lime 3DS 2108 is the latest update. And this one on Android has a nice new feature. They've added in button haptics. Lime 3DS is 100% free. It's open source. It's available on PC and Android, and I'll drop a link to it in the description below. And speaking about 3DS emulation and forks of Citra, next up we're talking about Lemonade. And the news about Lemonade today was not very good. It's been a very weird day for news. It's almost like we've got a full moon or something. So here's what Pablo MK7 said on Twitter today. Hello, former Citra developer here. I want to publicly report today that Lemonade, an open source 3DS emulator, is stealing my code. Not only that, but when I reached the developers, they started referring to me in a very disrespectful way. And for reference, I think they were calling him Pablo Escobar. So it appears based on GPL licensing, if you take the open source code from one project and put it into another, you have to credit the original project's author, and it doesn't appear that Lemonade was doing this. Pablo MK7 then says, I want to remind everyone that me and GPU Code are maintaining a fork of Citra in an effort to ensure 3DS game preservation. Unlike Lemonade, we believe in respect and cooperation between devs, so please consider using our version instead. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we just talked about Pablo MK7's Citra in yesterday's video, but I could be wrong. I'll drop a link to this GitHub in the description below and feel free to check it out. So Gamer64, the person behind Lemonade, posted this response. Feel free to pause the video if you wanted to go through it all. But basically, they say they're willing to credit Pablo MK7, and they didn't talk to Pablo MK7. It may have been someone else from their team. I'm hoping this was all just one big misunderstanding and it gets resolved soon. But moving on, and next up we're talking about PlayStation 3 emulation with RPCS3, and RPCS3 just got a brand new update. So arguably this is a little bit niche, but Super Hero Squad just had its output fixed. Here's the before and, well, here is the after. If you play this game, you might be excited about this. And they say here as well that more than one game used this fix, for example, Kung Fu Panda. Moving on, and we're talking about Cuphead on the PlayStation Vita, because yes, someone is porting it to that system. And it appears a brand new release of this has just dropped. I'll drop a link to the YouTube video in the description below in the event that you wanted to see it in action. And I'll drop a link to the project's GitHub page as well in the description below, as version 0.35 just dropped. Next up, we're quickly talking about Fallout 4, and Fallout 4 is getting a free update for next-gen consoles. They say here enjoy increased resolution and 60 FPS. For PC, they say they're adding widescreen and ultra widescreen support, and Fallout 4 will be Steam Deck verified. On top of that, they're adding in new content, including weapon skins, armor skins, decorations, and even more. Next up here, we're quickly talking about Streets of Rogue 2, and this game just got a brand new trailer. I'll drop a link to it in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. It hasn't released just yet, but the game is set to release sometime in 2024. And this game, based on the trailer, looks extremely interesting. Streets of Rogue 2 is set to be an open-world sandbox RPG, and I'll drop a link to this YouTube video as well in the description below. Let me know your thoughts about Streets of Rogue 2. Next up, this is a quick one, and I'll try to avoid spoilers except for this stuff here. Anyways, Baldur's Gate 3 won Best Game at the 2024 BAFTA Games Awards. Alan Wake won a couple of awards as well, and if you wanted to see the full rewards list or awards list, I'll drop a link to this VGC page in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. They list every single game there and the award. Moving on, and we're quickly talking about Linux, specifically Ubuntu. And Ubuntu has just dropped version 24.04 Noble Numbat Beta. The final release, I think, is expected to be at the end of the month here, but if you wanted a sneak peek at the next version, well, I'll drop a link to this in the description below. Next up, if you're a fan of Musion, you may be a fan of this. It's the Mortal Kombat Project X demo. I'll drop a link to this video in the description below, and I do recommend checking it out. In my opinion, this looks to be pretty well done and looks pretty darn good. Let me know your thoughts about this one. Next up, we're quickly talking about Google, and it appears that Google One VPN is going to be continued. The reason, people were just simply not using it. But anyways, that is all I've got for you in this one. Straight to the point, all stuff and no fluff. We talked about a bunch today. Let me know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate, save your state.